Welcome back to another episode of Ballers, Beers, and Banter. It's Sunday night. All the games have concluded. An extremely anticlimactic Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New England Patriots just ended with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers victorious because of a missed field goal. I thought the game was going to be a little more exciting. Too bad it wasn't.
Not. It was the rain.
It was the rain. But I'm joined here with only Anthony tonight because where's David?
I believe he's in Fiji, in the forests of Fiji, I believe.
Is he doing anything in particular in Fiji?
I don't know. The guy just takes off, and he's on a journey, and I don't know what he's set out to accomplish this time, but good for him.
Okay,
Fiji's a nice place, I've heard.
Dave is in Fiji this week. He'll be back tomorrow.
Yep.
So today's episode, we're going to go over the Moose's Minute and the Harrison Hurry Up, followed by some headlines, injury report, and then we're going to talk a bit about our Reddit segment, which is going to tie into a bit of a bigger segment just about how certain players are producing this season and how they're not producing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go from there. So let's jump right into it then.
You got your stopwatch ready?
No. Oh, give me a minute. I will.
Yeah. So for those of you who are new to our podcast or maybe missed last week's, this new segment, the Moose Minute and Harrison Hurry Up, is instead of just doing long-winded recaps of the games, each of us are going to take a game and recap it in a minute, and then after a minute, you're going to hear a beep, beep, beep from one of us, and then we go to the next game.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did, a beep, beep, beep.
No, it was a ding, ding, ding.
Oh, ding, ding, ding.
All right. So who's going first?
I'll go first, I guess.
Okay, you ready?
I am ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so the first game I'm going to recap is Detroit versus Chicago Bears. This game, the Bears won 24-14. Pretty terrible performances by the quarterbacks for fantasy. DeAndre Swift, the guy who I thought people should be weary on this week, only finished with 6.9 points. Jamal Williams, 6.6. David Montgomery had a big game, but got injured in the game, finished with 22.6. Darnell Mooney makes an appearance again with 16 points. Allen Robinson, 3 catches for 3 targets, 63 yards. Still not a big week from the elite wide receiver. And some big receivers on the Detroit side, but not any worth picking up. So big win for Justin Fields, but the Bears still look kind of bad. They beat a bad Detroit team. So hopefully they can keep the momentum going into next week. Also, the Titans did nothing on both teams.
All right, ding, ding, ding. I'm going to be talking Bills-Texans. What a disaster for the Texans. Absolutely got trampled by the Buffalo Bills, 40-0. Josh Allen got off to a rough start, threw a pick on his first pass, but turned that around to have a pretty good fantasy football day, 20 points. I mean, it was such a whooping that even Mitch Trubisky scored a touchdown. The running backs were a little bit more disappointing. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary only put up 20 points together, with Zach Moss having 12 of those points. Even the wide receivers had a bit of a down day for Buffalo. Stephon Diggs was only at 13.9 points. Emmanuel Sanders at 10.6. Cole Beasley was the lowest, so he might have been a waiver wire pickup that was absolutely disappointing today. And of course, Gabe Davis, he had a end zone target, but it was blocked. And I talk about Houston, but literally nothing happened. So that's it.
All right, ding, ding, ding. I'm going to take on Washington versus Atlanta. Big games from the quarterbacks here. 27.9 points for Taylor Heineke and 29.02 points for Matt Ryan. Big game. Washington won this game 34-30. Antonio Gibson shows up again, double-digit points. My boy, J.D. McKissick, who I say you should keep on your bench, 14.4 points. Mike Davis, again, not into the double digits. Finished with 9.6 fantasy points. Terry McLaurin, big week from the receiver, 27.3 points. And Cordarrelle Patterson, 32.1 points. This guy is looking like one of the breakout players this year. He's put up high points in the past 3 weeks, I believe. Kyle Pitts still can't get into the double digits. Other than that, any notable players? Calvin Ridley still not shining like an elite wide receiver, replacing Julio Jones as the number one. But hopefully he gets back. Curtis Samuel makes his debut, but only 3.9 fantasy points. And that's it for me on this game.
Yeah, I think I gave you a few extra seconds there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking Dallas Cowboys, Carolina Panthers. An exciting day for both quarterbacks. Dak Prescott had a fantastic day with 27 points. Sam Darnold, even more interesting. He ran in 2 rushing touchdowns today, and dialed up 33 fantasy points. So looks like our prediction was good on Sam Darnold. He's showing up. The running backs in Carolina were a little bit disappointing. If you had Chuba Hubbard and was hoping for a big day in replacement for Christian McCaffrey, he only put up 8 points. On the other side, Ezekiel Elliott absolutely crushed it. 20 points, touchdown. He was 143 yards on the ground. Absolutely fantastic. Through the air, DJ Moore, absolute monster. If you started him this week, you couldn't be more happier. He put up 27.9 points. Amari Cooper had a great day, 14.4 points. However, CeeDee Lamb, if you expected him to do great, he did not. It was almost like he wasn't even on the field. Even Cedric Wilson got a touchdown, and he had
Ding.
about 20 more yards than CeeDee Lamb.
All right, next one, I have Cleveland versus Minnesota. This one was a snoozer. The game finished 14-7 in favor of the Cleveland Browns. Both quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins, had a poor performance for fantasy. So if you start Kirk Cousins as a streamer, did not do well for you. Kareem Hunt showed up in this game, 15.6 fantasy points. Nick Chubb, 11 fantasy points. Not what you want to see from him, but still got into the double digits. Dalvin Cook finished with 5.4 points. He came back from injury, started this game, but then left as well with an injury. And Alexander Madison, in relief of him, only 2 fantasy points, so nothing crazy there. Justin Jefferson was the lone receiver for both teams that got into the double digits, finished with 17.4. I believe this was Adam Thielen's lowest week of the year so far with 6.1 fantasy points. Odell Beckham, 4.1. If you started him, disappointed, but we warned you. We did warn you. And that's all I have for that game.
Well, I think a little bit short. Either that or my clock is off. I'll restart us here. Here we go. I'm talking Indianapolis Colts and the Miami Dolphins. Super boring game. Both teams didn't look that great. One thing to take out of this, though, is that Jonathan Taylor had a bit of a breakout game or one of his better games, put up 18.9 points. Even better if you're in a PPR league. I think it was closer to 23, 26 points, something like that. Miami Dolphins, Myles Gaskin was a non-factor. Very disappointing. I had higher hopes. I should have stuck to my code. Never trust the Miami Dolphins. Never draft a Miami Dolphins player. They'll only let you down. And that's what Myles Gaskin has been doing. Through the air, Devontae Parker put up 15.7 points. Jalen Waddle, a disappointing 4.8. On the other side, Michael Pittman and Zach Pascal, both sub 10 points. Pretty disappointing. However, Mo Alley Cox was the star on the Colts side. He put up 17.7 points. And Mike Gesicki, the tight end on Miami, put up 14.2.
All right, so my next game, just look at the list. I think you stole my Houston Bills one, so I'll have to look to see which one we're going to miss. But I'm going to go to the 4 o'clock games, take on Cardinals Rams. This one was exciting, but only on one side of the ball. Arizona beat the LA Rams 37-20. Kyler Murray, again, a huge week. My pick for top fantasy finisher for QBs this year. Matt Stafford still got into the double digits, but he had a very mediocre performance if you were watching. Both running backs for the Arizona Cardinals got into the double digits. James Conner, 2 TDs, finished with 18.6 fantasy points. Chase Edmonds with 15.9. Again, we're always talking half-point PPR here. Darrell Henderson, makes his way back in week 4, 14.1 fantasy points. You're happy with that. DeAndre Hopkins, double digits, sub 10 points. AJ Green, again, a big week, 15.2 fantasy points. And Van Jefferson and Robert Woods were the shining stars for the receiving core on the Rams side of the ball. Van Jefferson with 18 points and Robert Woods with 12.8.
Ding, ding, ding.
Both, go.
All right, I'm bringing you New York Giants and the New Orleans Saints. Daniel Jones put up 27.7 points. Good for him. On the other side of the game, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, what's going on? Suddenly, Taysom Hill was featured all over the place. He had, 3 touchdowns today? Ridiculous. And this is one thing that, everyone was concerned about, that he'd be vulturing touchdowns from Alvin Kamara. And that seems to be the case, because I think 2 of those touchdowns were rushing touchdowns, which easily could have been from Alvin Kamara, who only scored 12 points today. On the other side of the ball, Saquon Barkley is back. He looks healthy. He looks explosive. He put up 26 fantasy points today and got the game-winning touchdown. Be excited. We've all been waiting for this.
Ding, ding, ding.
No way. I still got 10 more seconds. Juwan Johnson, 9 points. Kenny Galladay. He put up 14 points. John Ross, out of nowhere. Huge play. He's so fast. 14 points. And now you can take it away.
All right. Next one I got is Denver versus Baltimore. This game was also pretty slow. I don't know why I picked these games to watch. Expected big things. Baltimore wins 23-7. Lamar Jackson finished with 19.44 fantasy points. Again, with the decision making, seems to struggle. Teddy Bridgewater didn't look too bad, was doing enough, but left the game with a concussion. Latavius Murray was named the starter in the backfield for the Baltimore Ravens, and Tyson Williams was inactive in this game. Both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams didn't get into the double digits for Denver. It was a quiet week for them and the receivers on Denver. Nobody in the double digits. The only notable wide receiver to mention was Marquise Brown with 17.1 fantasy points, and Mark Andrews finished with 9.2. Noah Fant, 13.6. And Justin Tucker, again, I'm going to mention a kicker. He's always good, 13 fantasy points. You're happy if you picked him in your fantasy drafts. And that's all I have to say on that one.
Well, good, because it's ding, ding, ding. Kansas City, Philadelphia Eagles. Patrick Mahomes, not much to say there. He's fantastic. Looks like they're the Kansas City of old. They had a bit of a slump week, a couple of losses, but they're right back there. Jalen Hurts, 27 points. He was cranking the ball through the air today. He looked a little bit better than maybe we'd predicted. He had a good game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 18 points. That's fantastic for people who are a little bit down on him. Kenneth Gainwell, 17.9 points. If you picked him up last week when I told him to, we can laugh at Anthony together, because what did Carlos Hyde do this week? Probably nothing. Miles Sanders only had 6.2 points. And let's move on to the wide receivers, because this is where it gets exciting. Tyreek Hill, 42.1 points. I get it. He had a couple of down weeks, but this is why you keep him, and this is why you start him for those 42 points this week. Devonta Smith put up a nice 15.7 points. And more excitingly, in Philadelphia, is the tight ends. It seemed like Jalen Hurts was just hitting Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz wherever they could, and Travis Kelce had a down day.
All right. I think the game that we're missing here, I'm not sure if it's on your list, Tennessee, New York Jets. Do you have that there?
It's on my list, but you can take it.
Okay, I will take that one. So Tennessee loses to the New York Jets 24-27. Ryan Tannehill was a guy that we said to be weary about this week. He finished with 18 points. We usually expect 20 points from starting QBs. So he didn't get there. Zach Wilson with 17.6. Derrick Henry, again, such a huge performance, 24.7 points. And of course, on the Jets side of the ball, the running backs, the backfield is not very talented. Michael Carter with 9.9 points was the highest there. As far as wide receivers, Corey Davis makes an appearance again into the double digits, was the main target. was not the main target leader for the team, had 7 targets. Jameson Crowder had 9. Both of them ended up in the double digits, 18.1 for Corey Davis, 15.6 for Jameson Crowder. And even Keelan Cole made an appearance with 10.7 fantasy points. Zach Wilson threw the ball all
Ding, ding,
over the
ding.
place. Go.
All right, Russell Wilson with Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. Russell Wilson was cooking today. He looked fantastic. Trey Lance got in for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo is out with, I believe it's some kind of ankle injury. Speculation is he'll be out a few weeks. I wouldn't worry. Trey Lance looked fantastic. Chris Carson, I think, is also banged up because Alex Collins seemed to get the majority of the touches today. He had 10 carries for 44 yards, put up 14.8 fantasy points, and he looked good. He looked explosive. He looked shifty. He looked way better than he did in the preseason. Trey Sermon, quite the opposite. Didn't look that exciting. Looked a little bit slow. But, if you have all kinds of injuries, he's not the worst option. Wide receivers, it really looked like DK Metcalf got more than 14.5 fantasy points. But still, he looked fantastic out there. With Ty Lockett injured, he is the focal point of the receiving game. Deebo Samuel on the other side of the ball, holy smokes. On one play, they just left him wide open for a 61-yard touchdown.
Ding, ding, ding. All right. And as Moose mentioned at the start of the episode, Tampa Bay beat the New England Patriots 19-17. This one was a close one. Tom Brady didn't look like regular Tom Brady. He finished with 11.06 fantasy points. Mac Jones with 17.9, playing better. I was impressed with what I saw tonight. Leonard Fournette being used like a lead back, 20 carries, 91 yards, 3 for 5 receptions for 47 yards, finished with 15.3 fantasy points. On the other side of the ball, we'll mention him a little later, but Damian Harris, we said not to play him this week, and that would have been a great choice because he finished with 3.6 fantasy points. Mike Evans was the only receiver on the Tampa Bay side to end up in double digits. He finished with 11. Must be happy about that, Moose. And Jacoby Myers, a guy that we said to be weary about, finished with 12.8. So he did get in the double digits. He was targeted the most with 12 targets. This is why I said he's a guy you got to think about because he is the first look on that offense. And then Hunter Henry finished in the double digits. Jonnu Smith almost got a touchdown, but only 14 yards. But this one was a snoozer too. And that's it for me on this one. And
you're always a few seconds short. Ding, ding, ding. All
Ding,
right,
ding.
Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, he looks fantastic. 24 points. He looks like Aaron Rodgers of always Aaron Rodgers. So I think it's safe to say he's going to put up good fantasy points from here on out. Ben Roethlisberger, the opposite of that statement. I mean, he's at the end of his career, and it's very obvious. I think I say this every week. Najee Harris was quiet all day until the back half of the game where they started targeting him more, passing him the ball, and he ended up with 18.1 fantasy points. So he's a tricky fantasy option. Who knows what's going to happen with him? On Green Bay's side of the ball, A.J. Dillon ended with 10 points to Aaron Jones's 8 points. So interesting outcome there. Deontay Johnson back from injury, put up 19 points. Randall Cobb. Remember when Aaron Rodgers said he wanted to get Randall Cobb more involved? Well, he did. Got him 2 touchdowns, 21.4 points. I'm sure nobody started him this week. What a bummer. And then Robert Tonyan should have had a stack more points. He was targeted a bunch of times and dropped balls or was
ding, ding.
1.8 points.
All right. So those are the games.
Oh, I think we're missing one.
Are we? Well, there was a Thursday night game, which
we got them all. We got them all.
Yeah.
I forgot you did the Tennessee New York Jets one.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we'll go into headlines and I guess game day highlights for you individually, but I'll mention some big ones. Jimmy Garoppolo left the game with a calf injury. He's going to get an MRI tomorrow, and they're hoping that he'll only be out a couple weeks. But Trey Lance, I guess, looked decent enough. I don't know if you managed to catch some of the highlights there or watch the game fully, but he didn't look too bad.
I mean, for a rookie, being thrust into a game that he thought he might not be playing, I think he looked very confident and very capable.
I did as well. So Jimmy Garoppolo missed the second half. And then the other QB injury on Sunday was Teddy Bridgewater due to a concussion. So Drew Lock played the second half, and he did not have any decent connections with anyone. He tried to air the ball down the field a bunch of times to Cortland Sutton, overthrew a few of the receivers. It was just not good. And for a game that was pretty close, both the defenses were playing well. I think if Teddy Bridgewater was there, he might have made it a little bit more competitive, but still, I think both QBs struggle on the offense. We knew that this would happen against Baltimore, playing against a team that is actually decent, not three teams that they played earlier that don't have a win. So yeah, that's upsetting. He was a streamer, so you have to pay attention to that. Another notable injury. I mentioned that David Montgomery had a big game. He finished with around 22 fantasy points. He left the game with a knee injury. We'll have an MRI tomorrow.
It did not look good. He was limping.
No.
He couldn't walk off the field on his, what do they call that? With his own power?
Yeah, under his own power.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he needed to. He wasn't carted off, but he needed to be assisted.
It was a hyperextended knee, so we'll see how that goes. Apart from that, I think this is the first week or first Sunday where there hasn't been that many, I guess, key offensive injuries, which is positive. I mean, there's already a bunch of players out. But yeah, it just, I find it was a low week for fantasy points as well. My leagues were not great this week. Kind of the performance that you and Dave had from your fantasy teams last week when it was not good this was my week. Mm-hmm. So it was not pretty. I got a big win in our keeper league, which I struggle with injury, and I have Allen Robinson, Roman numeral 2, who's been a disappointment. I managed to pull off a win somehow. Fantasy is lucky, it takes 1 week for a couple of your players to go off, so I got lucky there.
You're not gonna win every week, but as long as you make playoffs, that's all that matters.
That's it. And people, don't give up. There's so many players on the waiver wire. Yeah, I guess we'll get into some players more on the tall boy segment. But was there any noticeable things, or what games did you watch today? What stood out for you today?
Well, other than the things I brought up in our Moose's Minute there, I mean, it's great to see that the Chiefs are back in action. It was a little bit concerning that Travis Kelce only had about 4 fantasy points. It was a low day for him, but perhaps the defense was wanting to shut him down, and that's why Tyreek Hill got a ton of points. But I think either way,
didn't he have like 40 points? It was ridiculous.
He had 40 points, 42 points. So, I mean, this is the thing: is defenses really can only take one weapon away from the Kansas City Chiefs because they're that good. So we might see weeks where Tyreek's doing better than Kelce, and Kelce's doing better than Tyreek, but they're still both amazing, and I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, like, there was a couple teams, like both New York teams got their first win. I don't know what's going on with Tennessee. This is going to be a team that's going to disappoint a lot of people.
Well, actually, now that you bring up Tennessee, I will say, because this came to my mind when I was thinking about it, they should just bench A.J. Brown and Julio Jones all the time, because the receiving core they had out there looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, they did, but like, they didn't beat the Jets. So you have to just imagine that, though, at least A.J. Brown being a game breaker might help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they lost by a field goal.
Yeah.
So,
but this is a team that knocked out.
It's not like they weren't putting up points. It's not like the Jets beat them 24-0. It's 24-24, and then the Jets kicked a field goal.
Yeah, I don't know how you view the Tennessee Titans, but this is a team that knocked out I guess the Patriots in Tom Brady's last year, I believe, right?
I think so.
Last year. Yeah, and you would just think that they're coached really well, and these final quarter games where it's like close, and you expect this team to beat a team like the Jets. So disappointing performance from Tennessee, and even from this game really annoyed me. The New Orleans Saints versus New York Giants, because Taysom Hill, I mean, Alvin Kamara, he had 120 yards, but what you expect from Alvin Kamara is to get the touchdowns, and he received no targets out of the backfield, zero. Not
Yeah.
one, and he missed catch it, zero. Taysom Hill vultured two, but what what we mentioned last year is the turnovers from Taysom Hill. He had an interception in this game. Why? Why? Like, I'm pretty sure if Jameis Winston was 226 passing yards and one TD, and Alvin Kamara was running so well. Like, why don't you just stay in? Maybe have Taysom Hill run one in, but goodness gracious, like, the Giants beat you. And their defense was supposed to be one of the better ones this year, and it did not show. But Saquon Barkley, positive news for Saquon Barkley. This is 2 weeks in a row. He's in the high double digits, so it looks like he's back. 13 carries for 52 yards, 1 TD, 5 for 6 receptions, 74 yards receiving, 1 touchdown, but he did fumble the ball once, so he could have had an even bigger week. He could have had 28 points. But very good. I'm happy to see him get in there. But yeah,
bit of a bummer. Christian Kirk only 1 point.
Oh my goodness, roughly. I was cursing so much. We played him in our halftime league. I put him in for somebody. Yeah, I was not pleased. Not pleased with his performance. 1 target, 1 catch, and then wasn't targeted the rest of the game. AJ Green's a pain in my butt.
Well, that's it. And that's the thing. If he's healthy, he's a factor. That's the problem.
Yeah. All right. So are we gonna get into the next segment?
Let's do it.
The tall boy of the week. So again, a tall boy is a big can or bottle of beer. I forget the ounces and everything. I believe it's 16 ounces, the same amount as a pint. So these are for the performers of the week that are not usually in the top end of, or they're not the normal players that make it into the top 5 or top 10 of top fantasy points of the week. So this week, I know this is a Thursday night game, but I guess this guy is usually a streamer. Sam Darnold finished with 33.5 fantasy points. I believe he was number 1 on the week. So this is great. Even it's good to know that even when they lose games, that he can produce for fantasy. And this is what I said to look out for Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and he's producing without Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's a big thing as well. So you can look to him as a streaming option, or maybe even a starting QB if you've watched.
I think you could start him.
Yeah. Oh, then that's good. If you have him on your bench, if you picked him up earlier in the year, then slot him in. Doesn't matter the matchup. All right. Moving on. At the running back position, he wasn't the leader this week, but I think of all the players, he was maybe the one to mention. James Conner. I have him at 18.6 fantasy points. And again, this is half point PPR. So James Conner, this is a guy that we've talked about that is plagued by injury usually, doesn't usually finish the season. I thought he would be outplayed by Chase Edmonds, but they could live together and both produce.
James Conner's getting the goal line work.
Yeah. So good news. Another guy that I thought about putting in because he's had a tough start to the 2021 season is Jonathan Taylor. He made his way there as well, had 19 fantasy points. So finally, we see you there. One guy that I'm leaving out because it depends on your platforms that you play on. Cordarrelle Patterson. He is RB and wide receiver in or on the sleeper platform. We have put him into this segment before, so it depends how you look at him. He finished with the highest amount of points for running backs in sleeper with 32, but then he made his way into the receiver category too with 32. But I left him out this week. So my wide receiver for the week is Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb, like Moose mentioned, And Rodgers wanted him back on the team, came in, and played super well, finished with 21.4 fantasy points. So kudos to him. They're finally working him in. But for the most part, in the running back and wide receiver positions, it's people were there who were supposed to be there. So there wasn't too many surprises this week, making a few lower ones. If just honorable mentions, Khalif Raymond for the Detroit Lions and Van Jefferson for the LA Rams, who's looking like a stud this year. All right. And then on to tight end. This is also Thursday night. Oh, no. Sam Darnold wasn't Thursday night. I said he was a Thursday night game, but he is not.
He was not.
He was tonight. So this is the Thursday night. This is a Thursday night choice. CJ Uzomah finished with the highest fantasy points out of all the tight ends this week with 24. This is a guy that, he'll shine one week and then disappear for the next couple weeks. But he was the top guy this week. And honorable mentions, Dawson Knox again.
I was going to say I was going to wait for you to finish. I was going to say we got to mention Dawson Knox.
Yeah, but I think if we're going to mention people that I don't know, I'll throw a couple names at you and you let me know what you think. Max Williams again gets into the double digits with 15, caught all 5 of his targets, 66 yards and a TD. It's looking pretty good. That Arizona offense. Oh boy.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what Kyle Pitts is missing.
Oh goodness. A good quarterback.
Yeah, I guess.
Although Matt Ryan looked good this week, but yeah, there's a lot of new names popping up for the tight end position. Molly Cox had a big week as well, but he's also inconsistent. But yeah, Max Williams and Dawson Knox looking great this year. And that's it for that. Those are my tall boys of the week.
Are we already at our Reddit segment?
Depends. Last week, I think we wanted to do our recap of the risk rankings before, but we ended up doing it after. We can go over the risk rankings.
Okay, let me just let me drum up those rankings then.
Yeah. Man, what a tough week. A lot of big performers, but unfortunately, not a lot of them on my teams this week. Brutal.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we had. Oh no, that's week 3. Okay, hold on. Sorry, let me find.
Got to go to halftime. And then I'll pull up the points. You can mention the player if you want. Good to go here. Oh boy, it is hot. Hopefully Dave brings us back some gifts from Fiji. Looking forward to that.
Okay, so our first one for week 4 was Matthew Stafford.
Oh yes. So yeah, didn't get the win, but for fantasy, our line is 20 points. Finished with 20.3. We said he's a 6 out of 6, and he did it. He did. We said week in, week out, you can start him.
James Robinson, we had at 4 beers.
Yeah, and this guy played on Thursday. He showed up
and
big for a second week.
Probably did more than 4 beers.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry definitely got the 6 beers we gave him. Killed it.
24 points.
24 points. Next up was Jacoby Myers and Damian Harris. So we had Jacoby Myers at 3 beers. We had Damian Harris at 2 beers. Damian Harris probably shouldn't even have gotten those 2 beers.
Right. But it was the Tampa Bay offense. In the receiving game, he looked like
he had 4 carries and 2 receptions. Like they just even doesn't matter who the defense was. He was not a part of the plan.
Well, no running back was part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
But but that's the Tampa Bay defense. It's for fantasy and real football. You don't play running backs against them.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to do anything. So we were right there. But 2 beers means don't start. Jacoby Myers, we had at 3 beers, and I mean, he did get into the double digits, but 3 beers, it depends on your roster. If you have injuries or you weren't confident, like if you were looking at Christian Kirk or Jacoby Myers, I guess at that point it's preference for your team. Make your gut call, and you put him in the flex.
Yeah. Next up, we got Deebo Samuel at 5 beers. Well deserved. Probably should have had 6 beers.
See,
To be
6
honest,
beers week in, week out now. I love it.
I think
Seems
so.
like it.
Christian
31.7 points.
Christian Kirk, we gave 4 beers.
Oh,
Very
boy.
disappointing, Christian. We were too confident with you. You did not deserve those 4 beers. Logan Thomas, unfortunately, had an injury, so
Yes.
our ranking doesn't really count for him. Same with Teddy Bridgewater, went out with an injury. How did Tyler Higbee do? We gave Tyler Higbee 4 beers.
Tyler Higbee did not do what we expected him to do. He had
for
5.6.
a tight end, he did all right.
Yeah, 5.6. We expect a little more, but like I mentioned, the Rams did struggle this game, so that was more the issue there. He almost had a TD, but it was thrown very low. He should have caught it, but I mean, it wasn't the greatest throw either. But I would be worried about him going forward.
Yeah, Myles Gaskin gave 3 beers. Barely even deserves 1 beer. Less than a point.
I am so glad I stuck to my guns and did not draft him in any league.
What a disaster. I should never have gone against my code. And finally, Ryan Tannehill, who, he ended the day all right, 18 points. I mean, that's not the greatest, but, I mean, 3 beers. I guess that's the risk you take.
I think so. Basically, my prediction for this game, why I had him so low, I think personally I had him at 2, is because I expected them not having to do too much to win this game, but he actually had to throw the ball to try and win it. Yeah. So garbage time points. Like, I mean, our line is usually 20 points for QBs, but I mean, 18.8 is not terrible. So yeah, good for him. All right.
I think it's your turn to introduce this next segment. I think I did it last time.
I'm gonna drink some water here. Oh goodness. So now it's time for our next segment. They said it on Reddit. It was better than last week, no?
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah. A little pitchy. I don't know if I woke up the neighbors there, but definitely improvement. All right, so there wasn't too many interesting ones available today, but this one's coming from livin_Anna_prayer. Frustrated Ceedee owner offered trade for Andrews. So this is a redraft 1 QB. Trade was just offered. Ceedee and fan for my Mark Andrews. My finger is hovering over the accept button. What say you?
Yeah, you accept that immediately.
Immediately. Noah Fant is one of the leaders this year out of the tight ends, and CeeDee Lamb, even though he's had a couple mediocre showings, it's CeeDee Lamb. Like, believe in the talent. He's still young. We always say that it takes a while for receivers, young receivers to get to establish themselves in the NFL and have consistent weeks. But I also mentioned that Amari Cooper is still there, even though he's hampered by injury. He was hampered by injury in this game too. Left the game a few times, but he's still there. So depending on game script and the coverage from other teams, it will be CeeDee Lamb some weeks where Amari Cooper won't show up at all. But don't worry about it. Like, it was just a down week. I don't even know if it's been that bad in previous weeks either. You hit accept.
Yeah. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is he's an incredible. Well, he had a down week this week, but he's an incredible asset to have because he's going to have better weeks. Might have just been game script. Who knows what? Maybe he maybe he wasn't feeling 100%, so they were just targeting him less this week. But I mean, CeeDee Lamb, Mark Andrews, probably roughly around the same value. You're getting Noah Fant in exchange anyways. I mean, it'd be great to know who your current tight end is to evaluate further, and the rest of your team. But I mean, I think you take that trade. I don't think there's any hesitation.
Yeah, do it. Shouldn't even think about it. It's a 2-for-1, and I mean, this is the time to take advantage of some other players in your league, or teams in your league that are willing to trade away um, early round draft picks that aren't performing well. So people are throwing this category, a guy that we mentioned just before, Miles Gaskin. You have the Antonio Gibson that people were looking to sell earlier on, but he's had 2 solid weeks now. Like, do you have on your side of things, is there like a week that you would start to look at to get rid of, or not get rid of, but look to trade for these players? Do you wait for, let's say, do you try to get rid of Miles Gaskin now to a guy that might be interested and believe in him, or do you wait till a guy like Miles Gaskin has a big week and then you move him?
Well, I mean, I'm worried that Miles Gaskin's not going to have a big week again.
So
Miami's such a disaster now. Uh, I don't know.
yes, and I guess another name we can throw in there, a guy like Allen Robinson, Roman numeral 3,
You gotta hang on.
Roman
You
numeral
gotta hang
2.
on to Allen Robinson because Allen Robinson is going to have bigger games.
Yeah, and it depends how you've assembled your team. For me, in our main league, the 2-player keeper, I have Allen Robinson, and I mean now I'm going to be two wins, 2 losses. I've had other players, you know, perform when he hasn't, so it's only a matter of time before he gets in there. Justin Fields is getting acclimated to being a starter and to the NFL. Hopefully, he feels more comfortable playing a terrible Detroit Lions team. I don't know who they have next week, but if Andy Dalton isn't back, hopefully I mean, he looked good. He threw the ball down the field a bunch of times to Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson. So if you're an Allen Robinson, Roman numeral 2 owner, don't get rid of him. Keep him unless somebody offers you a trade like the Ceedee Lamb trade. Um, we mentioned last week that a guy like Antonio Gibson wasn't performing well. I was I'm pretty low on him now. Like I wanted to get more wins, and he wasn't helping me get them. So I traded him for Justin Jefferson. So that's a guy that I feel is going to produce week in, week out. Whereas Adam Thielen, I believe, will have down weeks, kind of like this week. So to me, that was a good trade. You can make a trade like that, like swap two high end draft picks for each other, and hopefully somebody else in your league feels differently about the player you're trying to get rid of. But Miles Gaskin, that one's a tough one. That one's a tough one. I don't know if there's any other players that you're struggling with other than Miles Gaskin.
Well, I
Before,
mean, Kyle Pitts,
yeah,
same thing. A little bit disappointing. We all anticipated maybe a little bit more, even though we knew that it takes tight ends a couple years to really break out. I think due to his physique, and talent, that it would maybe be expedited a little bit.
yeah,
So it's a little bit disappointing there. I know all the Mike Davis owners are very frustrated. The assumption was that Mike Davis would be the de facto RB1 in Atlanta.
hmm
He's not. So, that's not very exciting.
yeah. Just checking. Cordarrelle Patterson, 6 carries for 34 yards. Mike Davis, 13 carries for 14 yards. So I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson is the best receiver and best running back on the Atlanta offense. So staying with Atlanta,
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley has been a huge disappointment. 7 for 13, 80 yards. I mean, he's
Atlanta,
getting,
just all of Atlanta is disappointing.
yeah.
Miles Sanders owners must be going crazy.
But this has been 2-3 years
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, but now Kenneth Gainwell actually looks good. So Miles Sanders no longer looks like the lead back.
Yeah. So in this case, yeah, there's a
Which is
lot of,
it's too bad.
yeah, it's too bad. Jonathan Taylor finally made an appearance. We told you, wait on him. He's going to get majority of the carries. He is their guy. Naeem Hines is the receiving back. He's like a JD McKissick. It's not going to be an every week guy that'll perform. It's going to be game script. And Marlon Mack, don't worry about him. They're trying to trade him. Who knows? He might go to the friggin' Baltimore Ravens too. But yeah,
No,
there's a lot of
they've Baltimore Ravens have benched their young talent and are now rolling with the 3 veterans.
yeah. But it still doesn't look too good. And then DK Metcalf is he's had 2 weeks in a row now where he's the lead guy for the Seattle Seahawks offense. So that's positive news there. So for this user, living on a prayer with underscores in there, make the trade. This 100% benefits you. I know Mark Andrews is supposed to be one of those top tier tight ends that is consistent through every week, but with all the injuries on Denver, Noah Fant is going to be a target, a big target for that team. Even with Drew Lock there, he's not taking first team reps. If Teddy Bridgewater is out for a while, don't worry about it. We saw Drew Lock in the past be able to get the ball to his offensive weapons. So don't worry about that. It was just, even on a down week, he had 13.6 fantasy points. So don't worry about that trade. Click accept.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it for the, they said it already.
Oh man, twice in one episode.
I know.
Holy smokes.
Get the high pitch going. What are you drinking?
I've just got a classic Heineken. Classic Heine. Nothing special.
Lovely. I didn't realize I didn't have any beer, so I'm having a scotch, Aberlour Abuna, and some water because AC's not on. It's a little hot in here today, even though it's been chilly this weekend, but fall is here. It's time to warm yourself up with some scotch, some beers. It's my birthday next week. So I got to get the drinks flowing, got to pick up some beers. Hopefully I get a bunch of scotches for my birthday too. Nice. Will be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it.
All right. Well, words of wisdom. I hope you put your best gut forward this week. I hope everybody had victories. And if you had losses, don't worry. Having an undefeated season is it's next to impossible.
Yep.
Just make sure that you pick up the appropriate people off the waiver wire, which we'll be discussing tomorrow in our episode when Dave gets back from Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
What else can we say that are words of wisdom?
I don't have any. I'm on like a negative.
Sometimes that's the wisest thing, Anthony. Not saying anything. Well, that's it, folks. It's another Sunday wrapped up. Hope you enjoyed the show. Tell your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Ciao.